Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to waste too much time in the intro here. We had an interview, me and Lance, with the lead game director for World of Warcraft, as well as the assistant lead quest designer. Got a lot of really good questions talking about the future of World of Warcraft. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into it. Hope you guys enjoy. So, starting off, we're going to talk a little bit about like questing and delves to dive in first. A lot of players really enjoy delves so far in the War Within, but the replayability seems to sort of drop off once you progress past tier 8. And then after that, it feels like the only options to get gear and, effectively gear up are, either Mythic Plus or raiding. Do you guys have any plans to sort of boost the rewards or replay value of delves in the next major patch at all?
So I think, overall, we're super happy with how delves have been embraced by the community as a whole and really kind of become part of that endgame loop alongside dungeons, raids, PvP, as a whole new generation of players that are getting to experience the Great Vault for the first time and share in everyone else's sense of disappointment on Tuesdays. But yeah, I think, the goal was, as stated, to kind of give delve players, even solo players, a chance to get like hero track, hero quality gear across the board, the same thing as a heroic raider might get over the course of the season. I will say we are concerned about giving options to push past that really, in a way that might undermine kind of motivations and rewards for doing group content. We'll see what the future holds. But I think, we're definitely looking forward to, though, continuing to add more replayability and variety to the experience, new challenges to overcome. As we go into Season 2, we're going to have a new big bad to replace Zekvir, new customizations, new options for Bran, including a new tank spec for him, if you want to try that out, so you can like play a healer and really focus on the essence of your role there. And of course, 2 new delves coming in Season 2, as well as updated rewards from the whole ecosystem, and some updated mechanics that are more goblin themed across all of the Season 1 delves that'll start popping up.
That's cool.
During the direct yesterday, it was kind of announced that, like you just said, Bran is going to be returning as our companion in Season 2. Does this mean the concept of switching companions each season, is that kind of falling by the wayside, or are we going to keep Bran in the future?
Being fully transparent there, when we first talked about this feature at BlizzCon like a year ago, what we kind of had penciled in as our plan was a different companion every season. I think, though, a few months ago, as we started to really figure out exactly how the details of Season 2 was going to work, we realized that there were a lot of design challenges with that approach. Big one is all right, players have leveled up Bran, they have him fully upgraded and spec'd out. If you replace him, are we just taking all that away? And is that something going to feel like a bad borrowed power sort of thing, where going into the same delve at the start of Season 2 is harder and you have fewer options available and you have to earn back that same level of power? That didn't feel great. And so what we're going to do is kind of really focus on Bran as our War Within companion. Midnight will have a new delve companion, but there'll be, like I said, new options to customize Bran, but we want to keep the focus on him so players are always moving forward instead of having to take a step back and then build back up.
Yeah, I think overall that makes a lot of sense. So building the questing experience in a chaotic place, like Undermine, had to have been a blast. I'm really interested. What do you guys what has been the most enjoyable parts of working on the questing experience for this zone?
Whoa, that's a multifaceted or multi-step sort of enjoyment of it. I think initially the sort of poke of, hey, we're going to Undermine was the first bit of enjoyment, because wait, hold up. We're going to where? And so that was certainly a shock in a really positive way to sort of get to hear that and sort of understand, oh, this is where we can start to take the story. Past that was working with Chris, Taryn on our StoryCorps team, and then Justin Raff on our narrative team, and all of us coming together and just brainstorming well, what is it that the story needs to tell? What is it that we can tell? So needs in terms of the franchise level, what we can in terms of the cultural level for goblins, and how do we want to portray that? Because Undermine has been, I think I saw the art yesterday from 1999. It was just a little southern piece underneath the maelstrom, and then kind of well, what does that look like moving into the future? It's just been in some text chat bubbles over NPC heads, and so we got to bring that to life. And then also after that, once everyone came on board to work on it, is just allow the team, I called it the rule of cool, allow the team to kind of operate on the rule of cool when you're sort of throwing out ideas. And what is it that we're trying to tell with Goblin stories, making sure that remains consistent to kind of what we've seen since Cataclysm, onward, but then also lean into sort of the cool of Goblin. Because if we don't, then are we telling a truly sort of Goblin experience? And so we used to always say, is this the right way or is this the Goblin way? It was kind of like the tagline that we sort of used in conversations to just kind of have that process go. So building the quests, sort of like the summarization of that, was just a lot of fun because of the fact that there was a lot of history we could sort of like look at and sort of frame from, but then what is it that's more modernized and how do we bring it forward? So it isn't just like the Kazan experience part 2, but it references sort of like that vibe, that feel, because that was not Undermine, which is very different than what Kazan was. And so, because Bilgewater Port versus Cartels completely, and let's see what we can do from there. So it was just a very fun experience overall.
I gotta say, I love the design so far for that area. It is so cool. One of my favorite things was there was a giant gold statue, of one of the goblin leader, and then outside of one of the buildings, like there's like fake palm trees. I thought it cracked me up, man. I loved it.
Goblins are just super fun. Like when we were first planning out War Within, when we first realized like 3 years ago, all right, we're going to do an underground expansion, not entirely underground, but we're going to be delving beneath the surface of Azeroth. It's like, all right, what are the places that we know about that we have to use this opportunity to visit? And the two that came to mind immediately were the Nerubian Empire, like we touched on it in Wrath of the Lich King back in Asdrol, and then, like, all right, Undermine. That's the one place we know. We have to go there before this story is over. We'll make the story work one way or another because we gotta give goblins their due.
Epic, man. It's freaking epic. I love it. Just to quickly touch up one more time on Delves, is there any way possible that we're going to be seeing a new Delevers Journey in Season 2? And if so, can we expect any changes to the rewards or sort of cosmetics compared to the first season?
Yeah, I think the Delver's Journey is definitely part of what we view as the season package for Delves. There'll be new things to earn there, more details, as this hits the test realm towards the end of the year.
Nice. And I want to get back to lore a little bit and the world. Xalatath's involvement in 11.1 has everyone kind of curious, right? Like, how is she going to play a role in this storyline, especially with the focus on goblins and Undermine? Tonally, those two seem a little bit different, right? Like Goblins a little bit more comic relief, and Xalatath seems to be very serious.
Oh, okay. How do I put this without giving away the whole plot, so I'm not spoiling it for you? Goblins have historically worked on objects that are shaped like plates and other parts of the content that we've released previously. I think I can leave it there so you can kind of understand how goblins, and you can kind of speculate to sort of the things that we've seen. There was, a dragon that sort of broke the earth, and people were hammering plates on him, and there was a certain artifact that we went after. So going to Undermine, I think from there, you can kind of start piecing things together, and it'll make itself more clear. Much like Xalatath, I have some secrets that I don't want to let out, but of course, some of the speculation that's been happening out in the public is pretty close to some of the things that it's like, sure, like it'll feed into that. But you are right. There was most definitely a balancing act between sort of like the whimsy and zaniness of goblins against sort of like that seriousness of what Xalatath, who she is in terms of the story. But I feel we found a very good way to sort of bridge that and sort of connect to things that people have seen in the past. But then what does it look like with Xalatath here?
I love that. My main's actually a goblin, so I can't wait. Honestly, I was worried how I'm going to fit into this story, especially with the first season, and now I'm very excited for that. That's awesome.
Quick question on the new mount coming for the zone. It looks awesome. Can you guys share sort of how maybe we can unlock it and sort of the customizations? Is it going to be similar to like Dragonflight with the, dragon customizations and stuff like that? Will it be through like achievements or quests or something? And while we're on mounts, will we be able to fly in Undermine, or is it limited to just this new ground mount?
Okay, so I can answer the second part first. In terms of flying within Undermine, it is all being done by the car. There is no flying in Undermine. However, the other places that we go to within 11.1 for the campaign and for your sort of end game activities, you will be able to fly there. So skywriting will still exist in the other spaces. Now, in terms of how you unlock the car and things to say there is the hot rod itself is unlocked pretty early within the Undermine campaign. You have to get to Undermine first before we can give you the car for Undermine. So there will be some work that you'll do, and then you'll arrive in Undermine. You'll get the car there. In terms of customizations, there is no rostrum in the sense of skywriting, like where you can go and customize the different options, or like the Delevers Dirigible, the one from Delves, and how you can customize the parts there. However, there is a customization of the car. So you can swap the color of the car, you can swap the sort of the handling characteristics. Are you going more grip or you're going more drift? You can do like engine, or I think we have a different name for it right now, but it's the engine effectively. And do you want to go with sort of like more acceleration or more top speed? And then you can do boost. So do you want a more efficient boost, or do you want a just chaotic boost? And then we're toying with this idea of a companion that you can have in the car in some way.
I love that.
So yeah, we give you customization. It's just different than skywriting, but allows for people who decide to ally with like the Bilgewater cartel, because they really want the cartel color for their car, to seek that out, apply it to their car, and then you can drive around in the Bilgewater, version of the hot rod.
Another question on that mount. Is there going to be like dragon-like style races for it, or events kind of planned? And could there be maybe PvP races even, where we are racing other players in the zone?
I have nothing to announce on the PvP races side of things. However, there are the equivalent of the skywriting races. So we have a couple courses within the zone. So you have both the forward and the reverse ones that you can do. And of course, they have the tiers of medals between the gold, silver, bronze that you can go and earn as you're progressing through those races. So yes, we do have those in Undermine.
Gotcha. Is there any chance that this mount can sort of carry on in the future patches? Or will it just remain completely exclusive to 11.1?
I think this particular mount, the car is really built for the streets of Undermine, and it's like really just part and parcel with that experience. Obviously, like the feedback we get about it and the lessons we learn building it, and just offering the options that it brings are going to inform things we do in the future. But that's a wait and see for us.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Shifting focus, going towards sort of player progression and sort of rewards. Zekvir was obviously a really cool feature in season 1. I thought it was awesome. I saw that there was a mention of, another Zekvir style challenge during the direct. Can you maybe give us any sort of details on what's coming?
Sorry, no specific details. That's going to be a thing to discover. But the same general structure, like think of it as like the season boss for Delves, like kind of the end of your journey, and then an extra challenge mode. I think we feel like that structure worked out really well to give a wide variety of players with different play styles and gear and skill levels a goal to work towards over the course of the season.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
The new dungeon coming in this patch, is it going to be a mega dungeon? And if so, is it going to have a similar like item level or difficulty to the previous mega dungeons like Tasavesh, where we see hard modes or maybe extra challenges like we had in the past?
So we're changing it up a bit this time. This is just a regular sized dungeon, and unlike mega dungeons that came out like in the middle of the season, this is just going to be part of the dungeon pool right away. Gotcha. So like when it drops, like second week of the patch, you can jump in, run it on Mythic, run it on Mythic Plus. I think mega dungeons are a concept we love. We've gotten a lot of feedback about them. That's great. We're likely to return to them in the future, but we want to, change things up a bit. And I think here there was a story that we wanted to tell that felt well suited to a dungeon and a more standard, 3 to 5 boss dungeon that can fit into the dungeon pool.
When it comes to affixes and Mythic Plus heading into the War Within, we know that there was a lot of things changed. Do you guys feel like it's been a success so far? And are there any tweaks or maybe new changes planned for them in the future as we head into maybe season 2?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we, kind of blew up half the Mythic Plus system towards, well into beta in War Within. I think overall we're pretty happy with how it's played out. I think we've heard, some good feedback about the Kiss Curse affixes from the, progressive ranges of keys. And then at the high end, the people who are just looking to push rating prefer not having, some weeks that aren't push weeks, or, that like that randomness, that variation isn't as welcome there. We are looking at a couple of, smoothing out a couple of pain points. I think the jump from 11s to 12s at the high end feels like a bit much right now. We want that to feel like a little bit more of a graduation into, that like high end key pushing tier. And then I think on the other end of the spectrum, I think we can do more to have a better point of entry and an on-ramp into the system. I think for a lot of people, like coming in from Delves, for example, if you had, a bunch of Delve gear, you could look at the Mythic Plus system and really feel like it seems like you should be starting at a 6 or a 7 to get relevant rewards. But if you have no experience with the dungeons, you're probably not going to have a great time, both getting into groups or having those groups succeed if you're starting at a 6 or 7. So you want to find more ways to make that like the lower end of the range more welcoming and more rewarding as a starting point, so people can work their way up from there. Because I think a lot of the feedback we've gotten about people who felt like they hit a brick wall in the system was just a question of like people stuck in this situation where you don't want to do content that isn't going to give you relevant rewards, but you're not quite experienced enough to succeed in the content that will, and you don't know where to go from there. And so like that's really been a big focus of the team's discussions on the encounter design side and the rewards design side as we look ahead to season 2.
Love that. A lot of great problems that you address right there. And for the last thing, when it comes to progression and sort of rewards, going over the forums and stuff like that, we've seen a lot of feedback from the community as well as our own community, saying that the Crest like upgrade system can be a little bit complicated for like brand new players. Do you feel like it's in like a really good place right now, or is there any consideration for sort of simplifying it in the nearby future?
I think so. This is a system that was added relatively recently in the grand scheme of WoW, like halfway through Dragonflight. I think it's in a good place in terms of solving the high-level design goals of giving people progress to work towards, making sure that the content you're doing is being rewarded in ways other than just random drops that you might get or not get. But I agree with the feedback that there's more to do to make it intuitive and clear. I think even things like the naming of the crests, you want to get away from like renaming them so frequently as you try to learn what's what. Ideally, they could match up a bit more clearly. So it's like myth track and hero track gear, those things make sense. They come from mythic or heroic content respectively. If the crests felt more intuitive there, that would help. And I think there's more we can do in terms of in-game tutorialization. It's tricky because it's a complex system inherently, but I think like we need those tiers of crests to kind of cater to the very broad range of content that players are doing, all the way from mythic raiding and stuff down to outdoor world gameplay raid finder. But it should be clearer, and that's something we're going to continue to work on.
So in the direct, it's mentioned that we're going to be kind of interacting with the Haronir in this upcoming patch. And actually, I think it's 11.07 that we see them, if I'm not mistaken. Is there any chance that we see them as a playable race in this patch or in the future?
I mean, anything's possible in the future. I think, they're definitely still in that mysterious place of, a culture that exists that we're being introduced to beneath the surface of Azeroth. We will see more of them in the future. We have a lot of story to come, and who knows what the future holds there.
In the roadmap yesterday, and I know this is probably a long way off, but in the roadmap, we saw teasers for Nightfall and Visions Revisited. Can you share any updates on those or details on what we could expect from these features?
Not yet, no. I think, by design, some of the things that are in the roadmap are a bit vague. They're, feature names that we are committed to, but we'll explain them more when we get there. Visions Revisited, I can probably touch on a little bit. It's a bit intuitive. Like we had the Visions of N'Zoth system back in our 8.3 patch, the replayable stuff you were doing, going in with your cloak to shield yourself from corruption. I think that was a cool self-contained system. It could be a fun thing to, update and adapt to, it kind of fits in with the modern Void story as well. And for many people who've never experienced it since it was, 6 years ago in the game, I think it'd be a fun thing to take another crack at.
I know this is kind of a loaded question. With the success of, past experimental modes like Mist of Pandaria Remix, is there any chance on the horizon we can see something like Legion Remix maybe later in the future?
I mean, anything's possible. There's some Felgreen tinge towards the right end of the roadmap. If you take a look at the banner there, who knows what that could mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, experiments are something we want to continue to try new experiments. When we do something that we get great feedback on, it makes it likely we're going to go back to that sort of thing again and learn from it and build upon our experience from last time.
Gotcha. Yeah. Lance noticed that on the roadmap as well. It's funny that you mentioned that. Another thing is with talking about Plunderstorm, with it making a comeback, is there anything specifically new this time around that players can look forward to beyond just, how you earn cosmetics and maybe new ones, like maybe new abilities or other fresh new updates that you guys can share?
It's mostly a fresh pass on rewards and just making the experience available again for those who missed it, since it was kind of towards the tail end of the last expansion. There's a bunch of folks around now who weren't then. It's something we want to continue to update and build on in the future. And I think things like everything from new abilities to like a new map to play on are things the team is excited about doing. But I would view this as more of like a Plunderstorm 1.5 than a Plunderstorm 2.
Okay, awesome.
And to kind of keep it in the Plunderstorm realm, is it something that's going to be remaining kind of seasonal, or is it something that we could see as a permanent feature in the game?
I think the plan for this next run is, again, like a limited time event. It's something that could become an evergreen mode down the line, potentially. I think there's a lot of questions we want to answer in terms of replayability and rewards depth. Like for part of what makes it a good experience is snappy matchmaking and lots of people doing it, which I think, if it were just around open-endedly, you'd get to a point where you were seeing the same people over and over again. It took longer to find a match. That would detract from the overall experience. But, I think we want to keep polishing it and iterating on it. I think it's just a fun alternative way to experience a piece of WoW.
That makes sense. Awesome. So looking toward the future now and some of the big announcements as of yesterday, the player housing one, potentially, it was really, really exciting. Are you guys aiming for more of a setup that's like customizable to sort of how garrisons were? And will it be more focused on personal cosmetic touches rather than like player power or sort of progression? For example, some MMOs in the space, they have something like crafting professions, for example, like furnishing, to sort of create custom furniture and stuff like that. Is that something we could potentially see in the WoW housing system?
So I will say, it was fun getting to pull back the curtain a tiny bit at the end of the direct and let people know that housing is coming with Midnight. Yeah. But I think we're going to stay pretty quiet about it until the year ahead. Right now, our focus really is War Within, but we are excited to kind of kick off a bit of that conversation and speculation in the community so that the team can hear more about what people are hoping to see, what they don't want to see, what they're excited about. As that guides our development efforts going forward. So a lot more details to come. I'm not going to get into any specifics now. I will say it's not like this isn't a player power system, right? Like this housing is not going to you're not going to do a housing thing that increases your damage and raids or whatever. That's for sure not what it's about.
So as we're kind of wrapping up season 1 here and the launch of the War Within, do you guys have something in particular you guys have been really proud of as a team? Maybe some things that you thought could use some adjustments in the future? Maybe you have some examples you could give?
For me, at least, and I think the feeling of our team as well, has really been sort of the reception of the War Within campaign and some of the local stories that we put out into the zones, and seeing the positive feedback. Like, of course, we see a whole bunch of things from fan art to individuals excited about what's to come and speculation of the future, that people were willing to give us their time and devote it to playing our game and experience the story, because we're creating the saga, and this is the first step to the whole saga. And it was received pretty well by the community. People really resonated with certain like smaller stories that we put in there, and it really sort of invigorated us, and sort of it was very humbling to sort of see this reaction from folks, and like, awesome, right? We have a foundation here that we're building upon to carry out for the World Soul Saga that is just going to be a wild story. Like, we're talking about things in the future, and it's like, holy smokes, I can't believe this is where we want to go. And Chris talked about it on stage at BlizzCon a little bit, right? And so it's as we sort of have this long-term plan and seeing what people really connect to, it's like, awesome. That gives us direct feedback to go, okay, well, what can we carry forward in terms of how we're delivering story and what we're building? So for me, at least, and quest narrative side of things, that was probably one of the things that I think we're really feeling the most proud of, because the work that we put out there was received well by the people that gave us their time. So
Mark stole what was going to be my answer, so I'll pivot a little bit. I'm just say warbands in their entirety. I think that it could seem like a small thing in some ways, but it was like a complete overhaul of the foundations of World of Warcraft and like 20 years worth of assumptions that were based on character as the center of everything, and shifting to a new foundation. It's not just about like how it's already changed the game for a lot of people, encouraging easier play of alts and sharing currencies and stuff across your account, but also like the doors it's going to open for us down the line as we have these new foundations to build on. Where like in the past, every time we tried to do something that was a bit more alt friendly, a bit more cross character, we kept running into these obstacles because that's just not how the game was ever built originally. Now those obstacles are wide open doors, and I think there's going to be a ton of exciting stuff the team can roll out over the course of Midnight, Last Titan, and beyond.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, warbands are phenomenal, man. They're a major time saver. Progression system getting easier as you do it for the first time and stuff like that. It's all so smooth and all friendly. I love it. One last question that I sort of passed by is the direct yesterday was awesome, but it had a little bit of a different feel compared to BlizzCon, of course. Can we sort of expect BlizzCon to make a return this year, or is the direct format going to be staying for the time being?
I mean, so it's not my place to speak. I can definitively say that BlizzCon will not return in 2024. That would be a little bit tight for us to announce it. In the future, I think that's going to be a Blizzard level decision. Yeah. Keep an eye out for announcements and discussion from Blizzard leadership. BlizzCon's always one of my favorite events, my favorite, sets of days. It's like, it's both exhausting and super energizing. It's a reminder of why we do what we do. So I have no details on when the next one will be, but I can't wait for it. I'm sorry to cut you guys off. I think I do have to drop.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you so much.
Another thing.
Ian.
Yeah, no, of course.
Mark, thank you guys. It was a pleasure meeting you both, and you guys are killing it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great questions,
appreciate
guys.
it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Later. Take care.